hold up. Y'all know I gotta get right. My bad. I gotta get right. Here we go. Mr. Roll, another one. What up with you, man? It's the Mayor King Hebrew. This is a video I put together in 2012, which is a collage of a bunch of other video snippets that I seen that was talking about the same thing that I was talking about. So this is about Monsanto's, which are the people who are behind a whole lot of GMO, everything you can name of. If they name is stamped on it, 98% of the time it's going to be GMO. So let's go ahead and look at what GMO is and the stuff that they do.
97% of the varieties of vegetables grown.
Now this video starts in the middle of it because I think this was part 2. And I think the other part got taken down maybe. So we just going to start it from here. 20 minutes we're going to go in.
At the beginning of the 20th century are now extinct. Genetic uniformity leads to an increased vulnerability to insects and disease. Farmers found themselves trapped on a pesticide treadmill. The more they sprayed, the more they had to spray. The increased use of fertilizers, pesticides, and herbicides increased costs, polluted water, and created health risks. Then in the 1970s, Monsanto introduced Roundup. Because of its ability to kill most weeds, it became one of the most popular herbicides in history. In the mid-1990s, building on technologies that used gene splicing, the Green Revolution turned into the Gene Revolution. Capitalizing on the new technology, Monsanto genetically modified its seeds to be Roundup ready. Normally, Roundup kills anything green, but if the plant is Roundup ready, when it is sprayed, it doesn't die. BT corn. The corn itself is registered as an insecticide. This is because every cell has been engineered to manufacture BT, a natural bacterial toxin. If a corn borer eats any part of the plant, it will die. All species have developed elaborate mechanisms over millions of years to protect their cells from invasion from foreign DNA. Genetic engineers have to overcome the integrity of the species barrier to insert a new genetic trait into a plant or animal. When scientists began genetic engineering 30 years ago, they believed that one gene expressed one trait, that transgenic DNA would be stable even when forced to cross species barriers.
A new technique of molecular biology.
So really it's all about a cheaper way, right? Even if it kills people, but it's cheaper.
Appears to have allowed us to outdo the standard events of evolution.
It is not known what sort of risk this is going to create because we have no tests.
The conference delegates voted against the moratorium, but did pledge to keep all recombinant DNA and genetically engineered organisms contained safely within laboratories. Currently, both agriculture and medical biotechnology use genetic engineering. Medical biotechnology has created many life-saving products. These pharmaceuticals are made under controlled conditions in secure labs. Genetically modified plants, unlike drugs, reproduce, and once released into the environment, cannot be controlled.
Using biotechnology to produce food is not new. For nearly 6,000 years, people have used yeast, a living organism, to make bread rise, and we've used biotech for almost as long to ferment beer and wine.
So there's really nothing new here. But that is completely wrong. Genetic engineering is really a radical revolution in food production. It's really a cell invasion technology. You know, people have heard they're taking a flounder gene and putting it in tomato so the tomato can last in cold temperatures. But people ask, how does that flounder gene get in that tomato? How does it get in there? And what really happens is the only way you can do it is to invade the cell of the tomato and deposit the flounder gene. Well, what's good at invading cells? Bacteria and viruses.
After 12 years of searching, Monsanto found a soil bacteria that is naturally immune to Roundup herbicide. Their goal was to genetically engineer DNA from these bacteria into various plants. Some of the E. coli DNA recombines with the Roundup-resistant bacteria. Then the technicians smuggle the engineered DNA into the cells of the corn plant they want to modify. Cells will naturally reject foreign DNA, so they developed a method using soil bacteria that causes tumors in plants. They use this bacteria to ferry the engineered DNA into the plant's nucleus. There are also two other methods used to get the engineered DNA through the cell wall. One uses a stream of electricity to create tiny holes in the plant cells so they become vulnerable to infiltration by foreign DNA. Another is the gene gun, which blasts particles of gold coated with engineered DNA into the plant cells. Each of these three methods needs a promoter gene that turns on the desired characteristics. The promoter gene is often extracted from the cauliflower mosaic virus.
This capacity of bacteria and viruses to invade mammals in different ways is what really has a lot of people edgy about biotechnology, because that's really what the tools are all about. In order to move genetic material from one organism to another that don't normally cross, you've got to sort of behave like bacteria and viruses and invade into the cells and become established, just like the virus must become established.
Like I said, this is just a continuation of what we was talking about on I'm Just panel. You know what I'm saying? If you wanted to know how they do, how they genetically modify stuff, this is it right here.
Established. And they do one more thing. They attach to that an antibiotic marker system.
The antibiotic marker is a gene which is naturally resistant to a specific antibiotic, so later they can test whether the genetic cassette is being expressed.
The most cataclysmic force in the food system right now is the fact that the medical community is just terrified about the loss of antibiotics. No one really understands how using antibiotic marker genes in genetic engineering techniques might contribute to the problem. The biomedical community on a worldwide basis is absolutely focused on this problem now.
Transgenic manipulations, we'll start seeing pieces of DNA interacting with each other in ways that are totally unpredictable.
We have now learned that genes function in complex networks, and a single gene can express or influence many traits.
An application for a patent on pigs.
Es geht ganz einfach die Einforderung von Lizenzen auf geistiges Eigentum.
Are pigs an invention, or the common property of all of us? Who owns the pig?
Es geht die Patentierung, die Privatisierung von Gensequenzen.
Genes on pig DNA, decoded and described by the Monsanto Corporation of America. But these genes have always been there. Will we soon be forced to pay fees for nature's heritage?
It is a very, very big business plan, and it includes control of food, from the seed, to the field, to the fork.
The politically charged patent is soon to go into effect worldwide. Christoph Zimmer, a farmer from Swabia, sees his livelihood in jeopardy. Is he soon to be prohibited from breeding pigs because their genetic material belongs to a corporation?
have apparently they have a patent on pigs. So you can't breed pigs and do all this other stuff with pigs without consulting other people. When pigs are just animals like all the rest of the animals. How do you patent an animal? This is the world we live in.
Christoph Zimmer is now traveling through Germany with patent applications for pig genes in his briefcase. He wants to shake up the other farmers to protest against the sellout of life, as he calls it.
Wie kann denn jemand ein Patent auf Dinge beanspruchen, die es schon gibt? Da kann er gleich Patent auf Sonnenlicht beanspruchen oder dass man hier zum Kinderkriegen ein Patent braucht und nicht dann Lizenzgebühren abführen muss.
The discontented farmer believes that these piglets might also be affected by the patents the American agricultural concern Monsanto is applying for, because the genes cited therein are not an invention, but already exist in almost all pigs. As proof, Zimmer wants to collect some hair for a DNA test.
Hier kann man jetzt die Gene untersuchen an der Haarwurzel. Und Monsanto behauptet jetzt, wenn dieses Gen hier vorhanden ist, dann sind die Tiere besonders wüchsig, besonders fleischstark. Es ist einfach so, zu wem ich auch gehe, der glaubt mir das nicht. Warum sollte irgendjemand hier kommen können und ein Recht auf etwas geltend machen, das eigentlich schon lange den Landwirten gehört oder der gesamten Gesellschaft gehört? Und deshalb denke ich, ist einfach wichtig, dass man sich jetzt auf die Barrikaden stellt und man einfach auch sein Recht an seinen eigenen Tieren hat. Das ist die Existenz von mir und eigentlich von ganz vielen Landwirten hier in der Region auch.
A field in Schwäbisch Hall is Farmer Zimmer's next destination. He wants to inform Markus Betzelberg and his father Ernst, who breed pigs, about the patent applications brewing in faraway America.
Hallo Ernst, hallo Markus.
The scientists at Monsanto claim in their application that certain pig genes promise more rapid flesh growth. If the patent is granted, Monsanto could in future also demand license fees for the Betzelberger's animals if this gene is naturally found in them, and the farmers cannot prove that they didn't use Monsanto's patented breeding methods.
Ja, das kann es im Prinzip nicht sein, dass unsere Tiere praktisch der amerikanische Konzern gehören und ja, wir im Prinzip die Tiere noch füttern dürfen und halten dürfen, aber die darüber entscheiden dürfen, was mit den Tieren passiert.
Monsanto, company headquarters in St. Louis, Missouri, heavily guarded like the maximum security wing of a prison. This is where the idea for a worldwide pig monopoly was born. In the lab, scientists are hard at work on an ongoing series of new patents. The goal is worldwide domination in the field of food production. An annual sales volume of more than 4 billion euros is realized here, up until now primarily by means of genetically engineered plants and seed.
Diese Oligarchien der Weltkonzerne haben ganz wenige Menschen, ganz wenige Gruppen, die haben eine Macht heute, wie sie nie ein Kaiser, nie ein König, nie ein Papst in der Geschichte der Menschheit gehabt hat. Und Monsanto ist einer dieser Weltkonzerne, sehr effizient übrigens, unglaublich dynamisch, unglaublich vital. Das sind Feudalherren neuesten Types.
Monsanto began by manufacturing insecticides and later went on to genetically engineer the plants themselves for greater resistance. This allowed the plants to better tolerate Monsanto's own crop sprays. Of primary importance was that every
exhale in the carbon cycle with plants is bad because they can tax us and make us the bad guy. Not open air genetic engineering, cross-species pollination, pharmacological crops that produce pesticide within them so the bugs can't eat them and die. So Monsanto demands that they plant refuge corn, in one case we covered, so that the bugs have something to eat because it's wiping out all the bugs and birds if they eat the stuff we eat. That's the real threat. Fission fusion, nuclear weapons, all this type of stuff, not humans, so the establishment can pose as saviors and say, you know, the earth, it was good while it lasted. Here's an article at Infowars.com, blamed for bee collapse.
I'm going to say it again. I don't rock with Alex Jones, but he do got some good information on certain things, but we know he only going to say so much, but he'll talk about this because ain't nobody going to believe him and ain't nobody going to do nothing.
Perhaps Monsanto buys leading bee research firm. In fact, Biologics company information states the primary goal of the firm is to study the very collapse disorder that is thought to result, at least in part, of Monsanto's own creations. That's what their studies show. But don't worry, now Monsanto...
One that's been genetically engineered.
Days, 80% of the corn, cotton, and soybeans are the products of biotech.
Crops don't leak out. We have domesticated crops.
According to a report in today's issue of the journal Science, genetically modified corn.
Americans have been eating genetically engineered corn.
Genetically modified.
Genetically engineered.
Genetically modified foods are foods that have been bioengineered.
You're taking crops and making them more in theory successful because you're adding in genes to make them, resistant to different kind of bug pressure or resistant to drought, to be able to grow in conditions that maybe naturally they don't grow as well in.
Foods that have been altered to some degree in a laboratory on a very basic level, like a cellular level.
It's when you take the DNA strand of a particular variety of a plant and inject it with some other DNA strand. So you're creating these plants that are like super hybrids.
Come from foods that can't reproduce, that are somehow manufactured and aren't coming from a natural source.
I would say that the effects of genetically modified foods would be harmful to us just because that there's a level of it being synthetic.
For instance, when they splice fish into tomatoes, you think you're allergic to the tomatoes, but you're actually allergic to fish. Anything that is being modified, that is being mixed with things that are unnatural are going to have negative effects on our bodies.
You don't really know, again, what that mutation is going to do in the human being. And then once that human being cells mutate, you don't know how, you don't know those variables. You can't control those variables.
They're not providing the essential nutrition anymore. It takes us we have to eat so many foods these days to get the nutrition value of food that was grown back in the day, that was organic and fresh and on someone's farm.
It's giving us a certain amount of artificialness in our bodies, a certain amount of toxins in our bodies that we then, that our body can't really metabolize. So then our body has to do something with it, and a lot of times it expresses itself in, ill effects.
So hypersensitivities, allergic reactions are one of the most common things, most prevalent things that we see. And all a part of healing those naturally is eating organic foods.
In general, I'm kind of wary of anything that's going to disrupt and balance in an ecosystem.
When those foods get into the system and have to be acknowledged and recognized at a biochemical, cellular, physiologic level, the body knows the difference. And what we're seeing is things don't work the way they did with the natural substance.
When you throw one thing off, it's going to lead to other problems down the line that we may not be able to foresee.
So I think the combination of both of them are really impacting the health of everyone because there's more and more toxins in the earth and there's more and more genetically altered foods that people are consuming. The effects of genetically modified foods on lands is really hazardous because from what I understand, the seeds that are being used can contaminate actually organic and foods that aren't modified at all. It can contaminate the dirt where that dirt no longer can produce or isn't healthy enough to help grow the food that is in that land.
Genetically modified foods are definitely pumped to low-income communities.
Genetically modified foods impact low-income communities probably more than any other community because these foods end up being cheaper than organic foods. And so there's no folks who are on a fixed income can't pick and choose the kind of foods they get to eat or only can to a particular extent. And they're going to take and buy what's affordable.
Again, there are foods that were made, for mass production. So that the availability of fresh organic produce or produce in general in low-income communities is very scarce. Most people are on diets of meat and fat and sugar.
This is tricky, right? That don't have anything, but have minimal resources to food because of drought, because of capitalism, because of so many factors, that if a cheap seed is available, the fact is that they have to buy seeds and they can't seed save is a problem in itself, but it's cheaper to buy this seed versus this organic seed. I'm going to buy this GMO seed and be able to provide for my family. But again, the long-term effect says that your soil is going to be corroded, your health from harvesting this food is going to be put at risk, and then you're going to consume this food, which in the long run probably can have negative effects on you.
I think that's the scary part about GMOs, is that nobody really knows. When we slice in genes, it may make that plant healthier, but it also might make it less effective long term. So, it may be really bug resistant today, but we don't know what that's going to look like 5 years from now.
I think that there are other more sustainable ways to grow that wouldn't involve genetically modified seeds. I think that they will probably plan to keep making more and more varieties of genetically modified foods, just because then they can have the rights and all the resources that would come with the seeds that are distributed that are genetically modified.
Well, I mean, it's on the table now, and the USDA just passed a bunch of GMO.
Well, my fault. Wasn't ready for that. But as you see, that's my video. You know what I'm saying? It told you what GMOs was, what it can do to our body in the future. I mean, this is still back in the days. So look at how people are now. Look at the illnesses that people are going through. Look at the booming rate of cancer, right? Everybody and their mama getting cancer. Like all these diseases that's hitting us, Alzheimer's, all this other stuff. You know what I'm saying? Sugar diabetes, all these things that's skyrocketing. Why you think that is? We've been eating GMOs for a long time. A very long time. You know what I'm saying? Y'all need to think about that, man. Start looking into them GMOs. Start questioning them. Start asking them. Write your Congress. Be like, look, man, what do we need GMOs for? What is the purpose? I understand it's helping you in the weather and it's blah, 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 cheaper, blah, blah, blah. But our health should be more important than what's cheaper, right? You be the judge. You know what I'm saying? Just like Johnson & Johnson will kill you and give you money and say it's okay. Do our life mean anything to these people? Anyway, man, just want to put some fat on your brain real quick, man. Thank y'all for coming through, man. Shouts out to everybody. Like I said, hashtag we creating our own peaceful, informational community, man. It's your boy D, and I'm out. Remember, if you ain't getting knowledge, you ain't getting nothing. I crew this.